Okay, in this video we will set up our sphere trace. This is so the player has to look at something, press a button, it's going to fire out a sphere which is going to look for particular types of object, and then that object will respond to the collision there, and it will do whatever it's programmed to do. So in this case we're going to interact with the door and the key, obviously the door to open and close it and the key to collect it. So the first thing that we need to do is set up the sphere trace on the player. So I'm going to go into the blueprints folder, double click to open up the player blueprint, find a bit of empty space. Actually, I need to set up the input first. So into the project settings, input, let's create a new action mapping. We'll call this interact. Again, I don't have my controller plugged in, so I'm just going to bind this to the E key for now. Into the player character again, right click, let's find our interact action event. There it is. Okay, so from pressed, I'm going to pull out the execution pin and I'm going to search for a sphere trace. There are different types of trace. In this case we're going to use a sphere. For this one we're just going to use a sphere trace by channel. There are other ones by profile, component, etc. But we're going to use, the three main ones that we got are by channel, by profile, and for objects. In this case we're going to use a sphere trace by channel. This one will just return a single response, where we do have multi traces as well, which can give multiple responses, but in this case we're just going to use this one. So let's bring in a sphere trace by channel. So we need a start point, an end point, we need to set the radius of our sphere as well. So for the start point, we want it to come from our camera. So we're going to pull in a reference to our camera, pull the pin out, search for get location, and we want to get the world location of the camera and plug that into the start point. We need an end point as well. So let's pull out the reference from the camera again, and we're going to get the forward vector, can't type, get forward vector. We need to multiply this vector. Whatever we multiply it by is going to determine how far our trace will travel from the camera. So I'm just going to right click here, type in an asterisk and get a multiply. I'm going to plug in the vector from the get forward vector into here, and we want to multiply it by a float, not another vector. So I'm going to right click on this B value and convert the pin into a float. And whatever I put in here is how far it's going to travel. So let's go 200 centimeters, which is not really a realistic arm length, but it works in terms of game design. And then we need to add this vector to this vector. So I'm going to take the pin out of this one, type in the plus symbol for an add, plug that one into here, and that's going to become our end point. So we've got a start and an end point. We need to set the radius of our sphere. I'm going to set mine to 50. The trace channel for now I'm going to leave as visibility. Everything will respond to visibility at the moment. I'll explain a bit more about that, but we're actually going to create a custom trace channel so that we can say only specific objects will respond to this trace. The draw debug type allows us to see what our trace is doing in the game, so I'm going to set that to persistent so we can actually see it happening. We'll compile and save and just check to see if that's working. So I'll press the E key, and you can see that the trace started there and it ended down there. So wherever we're looking, that's where our trace is going to fire. So anything that is set to block responses on the visibility channel will respond. So if I hit the floor, you can see we get a little dot there and it goes green to indicate that a trace has been detected. The door responds to it, this door responds to it. I don't think the key does. No, you can see that it's actually hitting the landscape underneath because we changed the key's collision responses. So we'll close that down, and what we can do very quickly, first of all, we're going to use this return value here, which is a boolean. You can see that it says if it's true if there was a hit, false if otherwise. So it's going to return true if we hit something, it's going to return false if it doesn't. We can quickly check that by just bringing that out, adding in a branch. I can say, just to check, we'll go print string for true, it'll say hit, and then for false I'll do another print string. This is really just to demonstrate how it works. You don't have to do this. And this is going to say nothing. So if it hits something, it's going to say hit. If it doesn't hit anything, it's going to say nothing. Hopefully this will work. Let's press play. We get nothing because we hit nothing. We get true. We get hit because we did hit something. So that's just to indicate how the trace works. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so now we need to figure out our collisions. Okay, so like what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out hit and I'm going to break that hit result and just expand it. So this gives us a lot of information about whatever it is that we've hit. So we could, for example, take the hit actor and plug that into, in fact we can take this out and search for get display name. So this is going to return the name of whatever it is we hit. So we could print that out onto the screen if we wanted to. Again, you don't have to do this. This is just a demonstration of the information that you can get. We can get the actor's, whatever we hit, we can get its location, the impact point, its normal, the hit component, lots of information here about what we actually hit. In this case, we're going to get the name of whatever it is we hit and print it out onto the screen. So for example, if I hit this door, it tells us that we've just hit the door. Again, this door over here, we get its name. We won't get the key. We will get the different pieces of the landscape, but we won't get geometry. Even though it detects a hit, it doesn't actually have the hit name. So the problem that we've got really with the fact that we're using a sphere trace is that we could hit multiple objects. So if I try to hit this door here, although it is within the sphere, I'm actually hitting the wall first. So what I wanted to do is to ignore certain types of actor and then only respond to other types of actor. Like this key, for example, I want to be able to hit that key, but it's only telling me that I'm hitting the landscape. So we'll get rid of that because that was just to demonstrate. Let's now go back into our blueprints and have a look at the key, and let's have a look at the sphere, and we're going to scroll down and look at its collision. So you can see that this is actually currently set to ignore everything except for a pawn, because basically we got it to respond to when we overlap with the pawn, it's going to be collected. We want to change that. Right now it ignores every single channel. What I want to do is create a new trace response here. So we've got visibility in camera, but I want to make a custom one that I can apply to specific actors so that they will respond to the trace that we're firing out. So I'm going to go into the project settings. I'm going to come down into the engine setting, into the engine section, find collision, and you can see we've got object channels and trace channels. I'm going to make a new custom trace channel. I'm going to call this interactive. If I can spell it, interactive. And I'm going to change the default response to ignore, because this is going to apply to every single object that's already in existence or any new object that we make. And I don't want everything to automatically respond to this particular trace. So I'm going to have it automatically ignore this trace, and then anything that I do want to respond, I'll set to block one at a time. So I'm going to press accept on that. We've created our new channel. I'm going to come back to the key. And if I just click away from the sphere and click back on again, we should now see our interactive channel here. So I'm going to get this key to block responses to traces on the interactive trace channel. So if I go back to my player character, change the channel, I'm going to have to compile and save this, change the trace channel to interactive. So now this trace is only going to respond to objects that are currently blocking on the interactive channel. So if I press play now, run up to the door, you can see that my trace goes straight through it. Same with the landscape, but our key does respond. We get a response from that because we've told our key to block responses to the interactive channel, and we've told our trace to search for objects on the interactive channel. So with that in mind, the next step is to create a blueprint interface, which is basically going to send a message to any object that responds to this trace to say, right, you've been interacted with, do something as a response to that. So I'll just compile and save everything here, make sure that I'm all good. I'm going to go back to my blueprints folder. I'm going to right click. I'm going to come into blueprints this time, which is in the advanced assets, and I'm going to create a blueprint interface. I'm going to give it the name of BPI for blueprint interface interactive. Now any object that I apply this interface to will essentially become interactive. Now before I do that, I'm just going to double click to open it up and do something nice and simple. We've got a new function that already exists inside of our interactive interface, and I'm just going to call that function over here in the top right hand corner. You can't see this, so there we go. The new function, which is here, there's the name of it up there. I'm just going to rename that to interacted. If I can again just spell that, that would be lovely. Interacted. I'm just going to compile and save that, and that'll do, right? Because essentially all this is going to do is send a message. You have been interacted with, and then any object that receives that message can do something in response to that. So I'll close that down. I'll go back to my player character, and we're going to say, right, okay, whatever we hit, we're going to send it the interacted message. There it is. It comes from our blueprint interface, interactive. There's our message. And we're going to take the hit actor and plug that into the target. So whatever we hit, we send it the interacted message. The objects that are on the correct trace channel will receive that message, and they will do something if they're programmed to do so. So we'll compile and save that, and we'll go back to our key. So we need to get our key to use the blueprint interface that we've just created. In order to do that, I believe we come into class settings at the top, and here you can see interfaces, implemented interfaces, currently none. So let's add an interface. We'll search for the one that we've just made by typing in BPI. There is our BPI interactive. We'll compile and save that. This object now uses that. So we can now search for interacted, and we now have an event interacted. This is going to essentially be sent to our object when it receives the response from the trace channel. Whatever actor we hit, we send it the message. In this case, it's the key. We can get the key to say hello when it's been interacted with. We compile and save that. Press play. Let's run over to our key. The key says hello. It's now responding to our trace. Wonderful. So let's get rid of the print string. We're going to get rid of our overlap because we don't want to run over our sphere to collect it anymore. We want to fire our trace at it. So now it says when you receive this message, send a message to the target door to say you've been collected, and then destroy the entire actor. So we'll compile, save that. Let's check it out. We'll run up to our door. We can't open it. Let's run over our key. Doesn't do anything. Let's collect our key and open our door. Wonderful. Let's apply the same system to the door. So we have to click on the door to open and close it. So we'll go back to our blueprints, double click on the door to open it up. We're going to get rid of our collision events because we don't want to run over to the door anymore. Let's close that down. I'm going to get rid of my collision box around here because we're not going to need that anymore. Let's delete that box, compile and save. Let's go back into the event graph. We probably aren't going to need both of these, but I'll leave them there for now. Okay, I'll just demonstrate that if I look for our interacted message, I can find it, but it's not going to work. This does nothing if the target does not implement the required interface. Our door doesn't implement the interface, so we'll go into class settings, add. We're going to add our BPI interactive interface, compile, save that. Let's right click. Let's add our interacted event. I think what I'm going to use here is a flip-flop. So from the first interaction I want to open the door, the second one I want to close it. So I'm just going to take this and add in a flip-flop. On the first interaction, open, and the second interaction, close. Compile and save. Let's press play. We'll run up to the door. We have not set our collision response for the mesh. So let's go to the door, scroll down. We're going to change the collision preset to custom, and I'm going to make sure that it definitely blocks responses on the interactive channel. That way it'll respond to our sphere trace. So let's try that again. Press play, run up to the door. It now triggers a response. We can go and collect our key, and the door did not open. Okay, why did our door not open? Let's go have a look at that. That should have done that. Is locked is false? Yeah, that really should have. Let's have a quick little look at this. Right, I've had a quick look, and that's because we're using a flip-flop. So I'm going to try and demonstrate what's going on here. I'm going to take this, put it there. I'm going to grab my editor and put it over there. We're going to possess our door. I'm going to press play and move this along. So what's happening is the first time I run up to the door and try and interact with it, we're using the A execution. Then I run over and collect the key and come back, and it's trying to execute B. So if I try to do it now, the door will open and the door will close, but that breaks it for our first attempt. So that's not good. So it does work after the second attempt, not the first, so we need to correct that. So I'm just going to bring this back over here. And I'm going to grab this, and I'm just going to dock this here, and let's put this over there. Alright, so we're going to create a boolean for whether the door is open or not. I've just investigated that, so I have made the boolean, but I'll delete it just for your benefit. So let's add a new variable. We'll call it isOpen. Brand new variable is open. We're going to get rid of our flip-flop here. Get rid, and we're going to break our links here and here, so we're no longer linked up. This is going to start at false because our door is in fact not open to begin with. So let's bring in is open, get it. We're going to check here, and we're going to basically say, right, if the door is not already open, we can carry on to here. If the door is open, we can carry on to there. After this check, we're going to get is open, set it to true, and if the door isn't open and isn't locked, we're going to set the door to is open and then actually open it with the timeline. From here, we're going to say, right, if the door is opened and isn't locked, we're going to, oops, not get, but set to false, and then we can close the door. So basically it says, right, when you're interacting with, first of all, check if the door is already open or not. If the door is not open and the door is not locked, set is open to true and then open the door. If the door is open and the door is not locked, set is open to false and start closing the door. So let's check it and see if it works. Bring my preview over here. Alright, we'll run over, click it as many times as we want, get the key, open the door, close the door, open the door, close the door. And I'll just demonstrate that that works in the same conditions as last time. So press it once, doesn't open, get the key, press it again, does open and closes as much as you like. If you want to get rid of your sphere trace rendering on the screen, just change the draw debug type back to none, compile, save that, press play. It's now gone. So we'll collect our key, open the door, close the door, open the door, close the door. Alright, that'll wrap it up for this one. Yeah, I'll see you for the next one, guys.